All right. Going to share this really quickly. I'll be right back. Okay. 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 All right, just giving this a few more minutes, you guys, and then I'll start. Usually, for those of you on the replay, usually the playback starts at about 3 to 5 minutes in. If you would like to just fast forward to that part, I'm just giving it an opportunity to go live and letting people drop in. And then I will start speaking into everything. Hello and welcome. Welcome, Brody. I do have a timer set for the chat just to prevent too much spam happening. I do really enjoy interacting with everyone in the chat, but sometimes it gets a bit much. So I like to leave it open. So for now, it's open. There's just a 10-second window between comments. So yeah, just letting everybody know about that. So hello and welcome to everyone that's joining. It's been a minute since I have come on here live and dropped anything in, shared anything, given a testimonial of what's happening in my life, and just shared from my experiences. So welcome everyone. Welcome, Skylar. I do hope you guys that are dropping in will at least give this an opportunity. What I'm exploring here today is based on my personal experience in the deeper levels of self-development that I've been moving through. So, you know, if you've ever struggled with emotions, if you've struggled with the relationship with your parents or relationship with a partner, if you're just simply struggling with how to communicate or trusting other people. I actually just spoke to a wonderful client of mine right before this call that's getting ready to have a conversation with his boss. And he was like, you know, I could really, really use some support right now. And being able to communicate that with him and discuss that with him prior to this was really powerful, because some of the things I'm discussing here feed right into that. How do you communicate with other people when your nervous system is feeling overwhelmed and you feel like you're about to receive a lot of blame, or somebody's going to start yelling at you, or you're going to get attacked? You know, how do you deal with that in that moment leading up to that conversation? So hello, Moscow, and happy birthday, Skylar. So by the way, for anyone that's here, if you consistently spam the chat, I will just ban you. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I like to leave the chat open for those that want to genuinely have an exchange in here, that want to genuinely explore what's happening in their lives. And I'm not saying that to be rude. I just want to respect those that are actually here to learn something. Okay. So it's okay. I appreciate your apology. And welcome from Russia. And if the 10-second pause between messages still has people spamming, I'll just increase it. So like that person, I'm just going to remove. So is it Sadie? Hello, Sadie. Welcome. All right, you guys. So, like I said, it's been about a month since I've dropped in here and I've shared. I've been in the trenches, if you will, for the last few months, working with my own mentors. And I tell you what, when you really focus on exploring your childhood, your memories, your nervous system, you'd be surprised at how your body processes. Hey, Mina, welcome, beautiful. I'm so grateful you were able to join. Even for me, I do this work, even have some of my clients here right now. And even though I do this work, I still work with someone else because it gives me an opportunity to better understand myself. It gives me an opportunity to help others. And, you know, this is not something that, bye, Skylar, have a good dinner. This type of conversation isn't for those that are simply on here to seek attention. This is something where if you're really wanting to learn more about your life and what's happening, this is for you. You know, for years, I thought growth meant becoming a version of myself that was different than the one I'm struggling with. I spent 20 years as an addict. I was homeless. I was in an exceptionally abusive relationship. I tried to kill myself. He tried to kill me. I've experienced some really, really deep traumatic, memories. I have those imprinted in my nervous system. And at the same time, those experiences don't define me, just like my childhood doesn't define me. What gets to happen is if we choose to go back and do and focus on this work, we get to see that it's not about becoming less human or becoming less of that version. It's about just being honest with what the human experience is. It's literally about being in love with what's already happened so that you can further love everything that is happening, will happen. That's living in communion with spirit. That's living in communion with God. And I don't say that from a religious perspective. I say that from the perspective of what I see God as, which is the center. If God or universe or source is the center, something bigger than myself. If something bigger than myself is at the center, then my personality, my self-pity, my selfishness isn't at the center. But if something bigger than me, like my purpose in life, my service to others, my ability to love others, if that's not at the center, then my selfishness, my judgment, my need to blame and guilt and judge, all of that's going to be at the center. And it's really easy to be in those experiences. You know, I get it. There's people on here like psycho ghosts that there are people that just simply cannot accept or give themselves permission to even just be in love with what someone is sharing. They have to be in judgment. They have to be in attack mode. They have to be in defensiveness. And I get that because for so many years, I used the internet, I used social media, I used outlets to just vent my rage. I was a gamer, I was an addict. And so being online meant I could be around those that would hype me up in my attack mode. I could go on and I could just lay into other people. And I was really good. My words would damage people. That's how, I was good at just taking this toxicity and venting it onto others and just taking the self-hate that I had within myself and just throwing it on other people. And it's so easy to do that because it's familiar. Self-hate is very familiar. And honestly, it's one of the most common underlying factors with everyone that I've worked with is self-hate. Most of the time, we don't know that it's self-hate. We actually think that it's our parents, it's our friends, it's our coworkers. We think it's someone else that's done something to us. Most common belief is that our parents are inherently responsible for us. And therefore, if they didn't give us the childhood that we think we deserve or we think we should have had, or if we think we lacked love in childhood, then it's somehow their fault that they didn't do a good job. And therefore, it's not our responsibility for how they treated us, right? And technically, it's not really our responsibility for how they treated us, but it is our responsibility for how we choose to treat others. And treating others with hate and judgment, man, anybody can do that very easily because it's such a familiarity in our society to automatically hate that which you don't understand. It's so easy to jump on the attack train and lash out at someone that's speaking something that you can't comprehend. That's a defensive mechanism for the identity. It's trying to defend and protect itself for what it believes it's incapable of. So one thing I'm going to just simply invite in here is just the recognition that you are capable and you are loved. And even if you maybe don't understand exactly what's being said, you can take this as an opportunity to learn. So, as I got ready to come on here today, I've been feeling really tired. I've had many opportunities to come on here and share, and I just felt like I didn't have the energy to do it. It felt like everything that I had been preparing for in terms of doing podcast recordings and sharing my work, and I've been working on this trademark course that I have created in my business, and it felt like it was just all going downhill because my focal point has been on my mentorship, receiving through my mentors and learning through my mentors to better myself and better my life. And what I learned from that is the importance of self-compassion and self-love. That yes, giving yourself time to integrate is important, but as a human being, we all have a major capacity to do things differently. And the biggest reason why I wasn't stepping forward and integrating as much of my work and applying and serving and putting myself out there and being vulnerable, one of the reasons why I wasn't doing that is because in the background, that personality still didn't feel safe. So much had been transforming that I almost didn't know what to do with what I had learned about myself. So I was going through this process of basically suffering, being in self-pity, trying to argue with reality and manage my time, and then therefore not managing anything. So I wanted to share some things here with you guys around the difference between knowing your patterns and embodying the transformation, because that's the vortex, that's the space that I've been in. I can name my patterns. I can tell you everything that's happening with me. I have the tools. I know about the nervous system. I know about the process. I know about all the things. But life invited me to experience it anyways. Like, even though I know all the self-development stuff, even though I apply it, I serve through it, even though I live through the self-development space, life invited me to just experience myself. And when life calls, you answer, right? It's not failure, it's embodiment. It's learning how to be human and experience your life through acceptance and love. One of the greatest misconceptions of this process is that you do it to heal or you do it to become someone different. It's like that this idea that awareness should somehow exempt us from being human. Awareness is the first step. Awareness comes before change, absolutely. But just because I'm aware of my patterns doesn't mean my patterns will change. So the person with awareness still gets tired. The person with awareness still gets triggered. They still feel anxious and they still grieve. I always have said I have high self-awareness, that I can see things very deeply. That doesn't exempt me from my human experience. So I could walk around all day talking about what's happening, but if there's no repentance, if I'm not doing anything different, then how I'm being isn't actually different. Just because I know I'm being an asshole doesn't mean I'm actually doing anything about it. Just because I know I have a pattern that is wounded in self-abandonment doesn't mean I'm actually doing anything about it. So this is, there's going to be days where our awareness of what's happening is there, but our capacity to meet ourselves differently isn't. Are you willing to accept that? Am I willing to accept that? Or am I going to label it as a failure? So one of my biggest lessons over the course of the last few months is learning how to accept what's happening, to learn to love what God has mapped out for me. Hello and welcome. And giving myself permission to show up to these experiences in life without making it mean that something is wrong with me, that something is wrong with the process, that something is wrong with the situation. Because it's very easy to fall in that familiar trap of self-pity that, oh, because things aren't happening in the way that I thought they should, that somehow means something's wrong with me, or I'm doing something wrong, or that the whole self-development isn't working. Because really self-development work, and this is, this goes hand in hand with spirituality. When we talk about it being an inside job, what that really, really means is my willingness to see myself in action and do something about it. So if I'm having a conversation with a coworker and they start to get really pissed off for whatever reason, I could say it's because of something I said, but I don't really know that, because that's fortune telling. That's a presumption that I know what the other person is thinking and I know what the other person is feeling. That's a protective mechanism of the identity, but it's not factual. It's a story. It's a interpretation. So if a coworker starts getting, real riled up and they're reactive, or a parent or a friend, how I respond in that moment, especially if I'm aware, if I catch myself wanting to go into defensiveness, wanting to go into blame, wanting to go into somehow seeing myself as being the fault or the reason, and I catch it, and instead of going into that, I simply just witness it. That's transformation in motion. That's embodiment. That's the recognition of the pattern while simultaneously doing something about it. Not by force, just by awareness. That's where awareness meets change. But if I just know my patterns and I still take that conversation from the coworker personally, I go and talk to my friends about the coworker saying something that hurt my feelings or pissed me off, or I tend to take what that person said as an attack on who I am. Then just because I know my pattern doesn't mean I'm actually embodying anything from that awareness. So when we go through those experiences and we're just in compassion and we're just in love, like I'm in love with that person reacting because I know that that reaction is teaching them something. That is wisdom. When I can simply be with another person and their experience and their expression and not try to change it and not take it personally, man, that's wisdom. That's power. And we always have an opportunity to act from that space. So, and before I move forward, you guys, I'm actually gonna, now that we've gone into this for a minute, I'm gonna change the chat off of slow-mo. So, I had a session with a client yesterday and she's actually on the call today. And one of the really beautiful things that came through in that conversation was, as we were touching on how we relate to other people, there is an opportunity to recognize that how I relate to you or how you relate to me depends on what you think you know or what you think you believe about me, based on what you believe about yourself and also what you're avoiding about yourself. And the only thing that stands between us and the ability to truly love someone else is our willingness to let go of that meaning. Because if I think that someone means to do me harm, then my ability to love them is completely diminished. But if I believe that they are there to teach me about myself, that they are God's creation, that they are divinity in motion, irregardless of how they act, irregardless of what they say. If I can simply love them for being, then I'm acting from what we say Christed consciousness, which is not some esoteric divine idea. It's simply acting through love. But first, we have to come into an awareness within ourselves of what love is. And love doesn't have meaning standing between it and the other person. It's a wide open space, and love closes the gap. So, I spent years believing that if I learned enough, that if I healed enough, if I became aware enough, that I would basically graduate from being human and I would somehow like transcend to 5D. Like that was the whole purpose for me, was that I could somehow be free from being human, that this suffering of human was over. And that was one of the biggest spiritual myths and illusions, was operating from that space and acting as if I needed to somehow escape 3D. And I see this happening a lot in spiritual communities. I've even facilitated, offered, and taught in those same in those same spaces that have that belief, where it's endorsing the divine feminine and the rise of the divine feminine, and it's endorsing this rise into a higher dimension. But in the entirety of that experience, what people are doing is they're avoiding their humanness, which is the exact reason for the human experience. So when you allow yourself to be humbled by the fact that the human experience is the condition that you agree to, then it stops becoming a struggle. It stops becoming about suffering, and it starts leaning, at least it has the opportunity to lean into acceptance. And I would say that the deepest truth for me is that we don't suffer because we're human. We suffer because we're arguing against humanity. We're trying so hard to believe in the fact that we can't love and that we can't do something. Like, we argue against the one thing that actually frees us. Why? Well, it obviously gives us something. We get something out of that argument. We get to feel right. We get to feel like we're above it. We get to feel like there's, if I say that I can't do something, or it's not possible, or it's impossible, then I basically don't have to take responsibility. I can just simply ride on the coattails of that belief. I can just simply be irresponsible for my lack of love. I can be irresponsible for my capacity to hold space for another person. I can act irresponsibly through hate, through anger, through aggression, instead of acting responsibly through love. And we tend to go into suffering because we're arguing for what we can't do instead of reinforcing what we can. And, we'll argue with our fear. We'll argue with our grief. We'll argue with our fatigue. We'll argue with uncertainty. We'll argue to keep all of those things alive. We actually live in the argument, which is where our suffering thrives. We're in the argument that we can't, and we fight to prove that we can't. And then we suffer because of it. But when the argument ends, things begin to soften. There's the emotional charge that exists is actually in the box of the argument. Once I stop believing that I can't, and I choose to be responsible for what I can, then all that's required of me is just to take action towards can, instead of staying stuck in can't, which is where all the loops are. I'm not actually evolving. I'm not actually transforming. And that transformation isn't a fight against being human. It's simply the exploration of being human. That's what it is for me. So when you take the opportunity for love and you actually start practicing it, this opens up so many opportunities. Everybody talks about manifestation, affirmations, robotic affirmations, manifesting certain things like money, trips, school, relationship. And the one thing that I've discovered is in all the areas where I was stuck, the thing that was keeping me stuck there, even with the affirmations, even with the reinforcement of the new belief, I wasn't fully moving out of the experiences. I want to say it's not about moving out of the challenge, but being able to face the challenge and not remain a victim to it. So instead of having, let's use money. Right now, my income is at the lowest that it's ever been, but I'm the happiest I've ever been. Before, I had way more money coming in, but I was so stressed out. And this is because I was trying so hard to stay in the comfort zone of a certain amount of money that if I went out of that comfort zone, I freaked out. If my bank account dropped below a certain number, I freaked out. If I had an uncertainty whether or not clients were going to come back the next month or book more sessions, I freaked out. So I had more money, way more money than I have coming in right now. But my nervous system was a complete wreck. Now I wake up every day at peace with what is in terms of my financial status, because my body is not predicting the worst case scenario. My body is actually experiencing peace with what is, which allows me to move forward, and my capacity to receive more is greater. So now I take action towards meeting myself in the version that brings more in without it being based on survival. So now I get to manifest. And I've also watched many areas of my life loosen up where there was like a lot of force, a lot of control, and a lot of emotional charge, because I was trying so hard to control, manipulate, and argue against what was happening instead of just allowing it to happen. So I do want to share another thing that really landed with me while I'm working with my mentors, or while I have been working with my mentors, is my mentors have done this a lot longer than me. They've worked with some of the top, I would say some of the top leaders in this field, the ones that charge like $400,000 for an hour. And as I'm receiving that knowledge from them, and as they're passing that down to me, I'm seeing that the human condition, even with all of the transformative tools and information, all the transformation that's happened in their lives, and the powerful somatic practices that they apply, they're still human. They still get triggered. They still have moments of challenge. That was the biggest impact for me, is seeing that it's there for all of us, no matter what. The human experience is there for all of us, no matter how much self-development work you do, no matter how practiced you are in somatics, no matter how much you know, it doesn't matter. Your life still happens. It's not about what happens, right? I know we hear this all the time, and I heard it all the time too, and it seems almost cliche. But when you actually start living from that place and you see that it really isn't about what's happening, it really is about your response to what's happening, you start to choose a different reaction so that you can experience what's happening differently. If you accept that these emotions are going to surface, that shame, blame, anxiousness, it's all going to surface. How do you deal with that? Are you willing to be with that, or are you still trying to run from it? And everyone I work with, all of my clients, including myself, everyone is avoiding the feel bad and they're chasing the feel good. Everyone, whether it's an addiction to scrolling on social media, whether it's a drug addiction, whether it's sex addiction, whether it's addiction to spending, whether it's addiction to shopping, whether it's, shopping and spending simultaneously, but we'll say spending in a more general way, not necessarily like shopping for anything specific. Addiction to eating, there is an addictive behavior at the root for all of us. It's a pattern of comfort to get a dopamine hit. And this happens in self-development. right? People go on social media, they come on places like YouTube, or they listen to a podcast, and they get a hit of information. You attend a retreat, or you go to a weekend, or even for me, I did like a 5-day course. And we believe in the process of that over that short period of time that we are masters of that information. We are receiving the dopamine hit of the information. But it's because it's over a short period of time, the integration of that information is still in motion. And how it is actually integrated and embodied depends on what you do with the information, not just because you have the information. And this is the most common thing I would say exists in the spiritual / self-development space, is chasing the dopamine hit of the information and the know-it-all and the ability to prove what you know. Definitely was there for me. And so we chase these retreats, we chase these short-term experiences, so in hopes of long-term effects. But our day-to-day never changes. We're trying to use that information to better our lives, but we don't know how to. We don't know, not necessarily we don't know how, but because we've urgently gone into receiving the information, taking the information and urgently trying to incorporate it, we then believe we don't actually know how to incorporate it because we have not gone through the process of applying it for ourselves. We are trying so hard to take it and give it back out, take it and give it back out. When you actually go through the process of applying it for yourself, that's where you learn. And it takes time and it takes space, which means that you take the information and you be with it. That's what I've done for the last 4 months. It's why I haven't been live as much. It's why I haven't posted. I mean, I've lost followers, subscribers. I've had so many people step away. I've lost clients. It's also been the most impactful moment or time pocket of my life. The most transformation that's taken place in my life has happened during this time, because I wasn't urgently focused on needing to get everything out there. I was at first, absolutely. And then I got really tired and I started burning out, trying to trademark a course, focus on expanding the business, getting that launched, getting a soft launch for the course, doing a deep, intensive self-development mentorship with, I believe, 2 of the best in the business, like I said, that have worked with those at the top tier of self-development. $400,000 for a session, I mean, and I say that because it's valuable what is learned. And I got to see, hello and welcome. I got to see that I did know what I was doing. I just wasn't slowing down long enough to learn about what I was doing. So as I'm going through this process, there are days where I just didn't want to show up, and I didn't. I did not realize how deep my self-hate and self-shame went. I've had deep hate for myself since childhood. I hated how I looked. I couldn't stand to look in the mirror. I would look, even to this day, it's still self-love and development, because some days I have a really hard time looking at myself. That's why it's hard for me sometimes to go live, because I'm seeing myself on camera, and I have a hard time some days just seeing myself right there on the image and looking at myself, because when self-love isn't coming back to me, judgment, shame, blame, that's what's coming back to me from my image, because that's what I've projected onto my image for so long. That's what I've projected onto others for so long. 1 second, you guys. I'm going to refresh this page really quickly. Okay, there we go. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's very sweet. I am really grateful to receive that compliment. It's still actually difficult for me to believe other people, but I'm working on it. And I realized when that is so prominent, I have tears coming up. I'm starting to feel like crying right now. When we don't process those emotions, you guys, we project it onto other people. We see the faults in them because we've been so unwilling to see how much we found fault in ourselves. And I used to take the attacks on this platform so personally. I thought it meant that I wasn't good enough when the majority of people would come on here in the very beginning of the live and they would just be like, oh, shut the fuck up. You need to go kill yourself. End your live now. Like, I mean, someone said that earlier today, like, shut the, like, you don't know anything. I don't remember the exact comment, but, people come on here and they really are hateful. They're so hateful. Thank you, Mina. So are you. And I know, even though I don't know you personally, with Ashmit, you're beautiful too. I do know Mina personally. um, it's so much easier for me to give that to people than to receive it for myself. This is a part of the condition for me. Being human is what I'm working on. And as I'm learning not to argue against love, but to argue for it, I'm actually having an easier time letting that in. To me, a compliment meant someone needed something from me. And I have an accountability partner with my mentorship group, and she just confessed that to me. We all have this hidden belief that there is an agenda. If the other person is nice, if they're supporting us, they must need something from us. I'm not going to speak from everyone, but from those that I have exchanged with on this subject, that's a very common belief. Or if someone doesn't respond to our love in the way that we think they should, something's wrong with us. We're not important. We must have done something wrong. It's this self-fulfilling prophecy. Yep, exactly, Mina. Exactly. But if we continue to share love, it becomes easier and easier and easier. And what I mean by love is compliments, yes. But when we begin to share love from a free space, I would say God love, Christ love, the love that expects nothing, the love like service. I used to do this service when I began in the spiritual community, to be seen as someone who was powerful and who could channel powerfully, where I wanted to be seen as someone that could channel Christ, that could channel Mary Magdalene, that could channel the archangels, that could channel, different races of alien beings. And, and I express light language and all the things. And my goal was to be up there with Bashar, like that's the idea. That's the personality's idea of love and empowerment and authenticity. But it's not long lived. It can't last because it's an idea. It's not true. It's not factual. It's based on the hallucinations and the illusion of a deep wound that's still acting from abandonment, fear of abandonment. I've got to be the best or people are going to leave me. I've got to be the best or people won't love me. I've got to be the best or I won't succeed. And that's beautiful. I'm really grateful you had that experience, Fatima. It's not necessarily the same way with everyone. For me, what I've learned in my experience is, and it's not that, let me add something here. I thought my soul family were the people I was connected to 2 years ago. But that was what I've learned about this is again from my experience. What I've learned from my experience is soul family changes because our soul is our emotional body and our mental body. So whatever we believe to be true and however we feel about it, that's the expression of our soul. And a lot of times our soul is clouded by deeply hidden beliefs of abandonment. Again, our childhood memories form our personality. And 99% of people have not gone through a deep inventory of their childhood. out of all the years I've been practicing this, and I now have, I'm a trauma-informed life coach. I'm working on completing my certification for neuropsychology and neurotransformational therapy. I've also been doing this work for close to 5 years now, along with client sessions, personal experience, years of trauma, abuse, and drug use, and all the things. That's my soul. My soul isn't some esoteric other dimensional thing. My soul is the compilation of my experiences. So my soul evolves when my experiences are perceived differently. So the family that I have around me now, as a mirror to my soul, is different than it was 2 years ago. Because even though I thought I knew love then, I didn't know. We only see love through the lens of our memories, through the lens of our beliefs. Love isn't what someone else gives us. It's what we choose to give to ourselves without anything attached to it, without any meaning, without needing it to come from some external place. Even God, even my relationship with God, God doesn't give me love. God is love. I choose love. Therefore, I choose to be in love with God. Same with Christ, same with anything. So, what I've been sitting with over the last few weeks in connection with this is that there is a difference between knowing and being. And well, I love the fact that you've had those experiences, Fatima. I really do. That's a beautiful thing. And again, where I speak from is just from the knowledge and the wisdom of, what I've gone through personally, and how that's also been shared back with me through those that I've worked with and witnessed in their transformations. And many of these I met in the spiritual space. Mina and I met years ago, right, Mina? And our work together began in that space of working with, ascended masters and angels and all the things. And where we are now is completely different, because my relationship with spirit is no longer a concept based on something outside of myself. I commune with spirit when I'm open to love, and therefore love flows through me and I can see things differently. But the last few weeks, I've been tired. I've been doing, like I said, I mentioned this deep inventory, right? So there's something that is applied for those that go through addiction recovery, the 12 steps, right? Many people have heard of this: 12 steps for alcoholics, 12 steps for drug addicts, 12 steps for sex addicts, 12 steps for gambling. So I went through it. Well, I didn't go through it. I was invited to go through it many times when I was on my recovery journey. I never took it seriously. I didn't take the connection to God seriously. I didn't take any of it seriously. To me, it was a waste of time, and I didn't think it was going to help. However, like I mentioned, my two mentors, which out of all the people I've worked with in the spiritual space and transformative space over the last 6 years, they're the two most transformative I've ever experienced anything alongside. And these two men reminded me the importance of the 12 steps. Now, I'm not taking drugs anymore, but the 12 steps is a process that invites us to look at who we are. And there is nothing else out there at all that approaches the soul's inventory like the 12 steps, especially in the way that they apply it. And also it's very similar to how I was also approaching it. And now I have an extended approach to that, which is exceptionally powerful. So as I went through this myself now for the first time, as I started going through my inventory, I thought I had faced these traumatic experiences. I thought I had made it through. When I'm writing down my inventory and I'm writing down the memories and I'm writing down the people involved and what happened and the meaning and the emotions, on the very end, how I feel about it now, which is one of the columns, I actually put at peace with a lot of things. As I started openly sharing my inventory with my accountability partner, I had panic attacks. I started freaking out. I cried uncontrollably for 90 minutes. I was extremely upset. So I wrote down that I'm at peace, but my body did not support that. So I thought I was at peace. I thought I had processed these memories. I thought I had processed the abuse. I thought I had processed the memories with my parents. I thought I had done the work. But the work only works if you work it, and to have someone mirror for you how it gets to work differently is an absolute necessity. I will say this until my end of days. Having a mentor is one of the most powerful experiences you can have. It's like being in a relation, it is a relationship. It's like being married to someone that holds you accountable to yourself. You're in a you're in a proposal, you're in a marriage of self-development. And that doesn't just end when you no longer work with the mentor, it's lifelong. Um, so it was admitting that I don't know everything. It was reviewing my memories and acknowledging how my body was still operating from the trauma and not from peace. The pain and the tension in my neck, my eyesight was getting really like blurry, and I had a lot of tension in my jaws and a lot of arthritis and inflammation. And my skin, if I scratch my skin on the bottom part of my legs, my skin just inflames. It just gets so angry. And it's like I can have one little itch and I scratch my skin, and within 5 seconds, my skin, my whole leg is inflamed. So I was obviously carrying a lot of stuff still. I haven't had a panic attack in years. I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined going through the process of my inventory and just openly speaking these things would have brought on a panic attack. But there is such a power that comes when what you've named is spoken. When you speak the meanings that you've assigned to your life and those people in it and the impact. And that's not it. You're also writing down the role you've played, how you've played a role in righteousness, how you've played a role in pride, how you've played a role in withholding and lying and judging, and you're owning your side of the street. That is one of the most powerful things anybody can do. And not only that, but then you also list all the things you're grateful for. So past relationships where there's still a charge. One of my very first serious relationship, my very first engagement to be married, I held and still hold disgust, hate for that person. I have so much blame for my drug addiction. And when I sat with that and I explored that and I openly speak about it, I have to own my part in the role that I played, because it wasn't just that person, it was me. I chose to be there. I chose to be in the relationship. So when you go through this process, and I'm telling you, out of all the years I've been doing this, out of everyone I've worked with, the majority of people don't make it to that part. The majority of people don't give themselves an opportunity to go deeper into their nervous system, because when the time comes and you start seeing who you are, 99.9% will avoid that at all costs. They're going to run. That's, again, I've seen this in my own in the mentorship space with my mentors, and I've seen it happen in my own clients. People will project onto me, just like I've projected onto my mentors, and just like I've watched other people project onto our mentors. I'm not saying that with judgment. It's just an awareness of what happens. When you're in the position of the mirror, you're going to get blamed for how people feel, because that originates in childhood, right? Blaming the parents for not being loved, for not being heard, for not being received in a certain way. So it's just an opportunity to recognize that. 1 second, you guys. I didn't see all these comments. Let me go back and catch up. Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on. It keeps refreshing. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I hear you, Fatima. I'm so grateful. I know we've connected years ago, Fatima. I'm so grateful that you're still here and that we still have an opportunity to connect and exchange. I actually didn't know that you were legally blind or you're registered blind. The most intense, oh, with me, the most intense romance you've ever been in. Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of times, so like, okay, gotcha. Well, I mean, I never would have known. So, I am so grateful that you are choosing to even interact and communicate. Like, that's amazing. Thank you. To me, there's actually a woman that's in my mentorship group that's legally blind as well. And one thing I learned by being in that group of women with her and having two men leading was that I have no excuses. I mean, that's what she taught me. Anytime I want to make an excuse and act like I can't do something, I think of her because she's legally blind. She had her shoulder in a sling because she had to have shoulder surgery. There was so much going on with her during these 12 weeks, and she was always ahead of me in turning in assignments and stepping up to the plate. She was always two steps ahead. And so, like, I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing. Um, I totally understand, Mina. Thank you for tuning in while you could. I love you, my dear. It was great to see you. Yeah, I'm grateful that you're here. So where I want to go from here is that as I'm mentioning the inventory, for so long I really thought I knew what was happening inside of me. I thought I knew, like, there was this concept around it. I thought I knew how to heal. I thought I knew how to communicate. I thought I knew how to regulate. I thought I knew how to set boundaries. I thought I knew how to manifest. I thought I knew how to forgive. I thought I knew how to let go. I thought I knew how to be spiritual. But we live in a culture of knowing. Like, we have access to so much information. Anything that we want to know, all we have, it's a search away. That's all it is. It's a search away. But because we live in a culture of knowing, we know more than ever before. And yet we still struggle. And there is something I want to name here that is a big part of the new age spirituality, which is love and light. When I'm speaking of love, I'm not speaking about the new age love and light. Everything is spiritual, higher self, everything is ascending. I'm not talking about that. I used to. Now that I'm on the other side of that, I can see how much of that was me avoiding who I am in here. I was just avoiding the memories. I was still trying to escape my humanness. I was trying to be more spiritual to escape being so human. So when we know all these things, knowledge, by the way, knowledge and embodiment aren't the same thing. Embodiment is an awareness of your life, how you're living it, and why. That's when you're in communion with love right now, like whatever's happening in your life right now, you're in love with it. It doesn't mean you don't grieve. It doesn't mean you don't get angry. It doesn't mean you don't feel anger. It doesn't mean you don't feel anxiety. It doesn't mean you don't feel grief. It means that you feel those things, but you don't run from them. You don't avoid them. You don't you, even if you lash out, you own your side of the street. You own that shit and you apologize. You forgive. That's the human condition. Emotions are going to move through, but acute emotions only last 60 to 90 seconds. So in that 60 to 90-second window, if you're present with your body, you are in the awareness of the body, aware of what wants to come through and what you allow to come through. And when that moment, and if you're in that and you're just simply accepting, like, okay, I'm starting to feel sad. Like a minute ago when I was talking about the compliments and I had the tears come up, I'm speaking and talking through it, which allows it to move through. It allows it to be seen. I'm confessing what's happening. I'm openly communicating my emotions. That's love in motion. It's not some esoteric, spiritual, higher self, source, universe thing. It's how you choose to live in the presence of something that feels like other than love. How do you choose to live in the presence of fear? How do you choose to live in the presence of anger? How do you choose to live in the presence of someone that cuts you off in traffic? How do you choose to live in the presence of someone that has a different opinion? That's when you can just simply be and allow and accept. That's love. It's not some like dopamine hit. There is an opening in the chest and there is a fuzziness, a warm, fuzzy feeling that pulls you closer, that wants you to come closer to that person that has a differing opinion, that wants you to come closer to that person that is angry instead of pulling away. That's love. It's magnetic. So no matter what's happening with the other person, you want to come closer, not further away. That's love. That's God love as I know it. So when we act from that place, it doesn't matter what we know. It's how we be, how we act in the moments that challenge us the most. I used to believe that once I understood my pattern, it would just disappear. Like like, okay, I know I have a pattern. When I become dysregulated, my pattern is that I try to avoid discomfort and I go into like scrolling on my phone, watching a movie, watching videos. The habit is to avoid stillness at all costs. And I thought, because I knew what that pattern was, that an awareness of it would somehow change the pattern. But that's really true. That's really true, because I can know that I'm a people pleaser. I can know that I want to help people, but that doesn't stop the people pleasing, right? I can know that I abandon myself, but that doesn't stop the self-abandonment. I can know that I'm controlling. That's a big one. That doesn't stop me from acting in a controlling way. Information illuminates the pattern, but presence transforms it. Do you still do light language? Yours was the more authentic one, I guess, as you were also more like a lone wolf leader healer. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, so very interesting. You should ask that, Fatima. Mina, the sister that was just in here, she's a dear friend and also a client. I actually brought light language back into our session yesterday. We had a one-on-one yesterday. And one of my mentors, one of the female leaders in his container, is a beautiful woman who is devoted to Christ, devoted to God, who preaches the word so beautifully. And she is introducing them to light language or speaking in tongues. And I actually stepped away from it because I had no clue. Number one, I tried to bring it into the self-development space, but there's a vast bridge between those that receive light language and those that are here for self-development. And it's like you can't, both parties, one, if people were there for light language, they didn't want to hear the self-development talk. And if people were there for self-development, they didn't want to hear the light language. So not only that, but I was still I've been in the process for like the past 8 months of understanding my, not my purpose, but who I am in my purpose. I know my purpose. I feel like all of us, our purpose is to live in unconditional acceptance of our life, to love unconditionally while simultaneously experiencing ourselves as human, which is a full range of emotions. Now that I better understand my purpose is to be in communion with others and share my wisdom, that's my lived purpose. My purpose is to love. I brought light language in, but not as light language as it was. I asked God to speak through me and communicate the word or the message that we both needed to hear. And I just asked God to use me as a vessel to express his divine grace, his divine love, his divine compassion, and his will. And she said it was exceptionally powerful. It felt exceptionally powerful to me. It's the first time I brought the overtones and the light language back in as speaking tongues. It was really beautiful. That's how I closed our session. And she received the exact message she needed to receive, the image that she needed. We both were, I like to connect us in through the heart space. So I come in and we connect solely through the heart field. And then I anchor us in at the end and just expand the space. It was really beautiful. So I am planning to bring that back through. I'm just seeing how that's gonna look. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. God's at the center now. And I love that God's at the center now, because before, like when I was speaking light language before, God wasn't at the center. My personality was like, I was just trying to impress people and be seen as important and powerful. And that's why I've taken such a hiatus. It didn't need to be about me anymore, because if it's about me, then it's not about God. And now it's about God. And I've been spreading that to my clients. Mina is we both now put God at the center, and others that I'm working with that aren't here. So yeah, yes, I praise him daily. I have daily devotionals now. So I am now an advocate for the love of God, and not just the fleeting love of attention, because that's what I was in it for the attention before. So yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you, Fatima. Thank you so much. Beautiful. It's definitely makes a huge difference. And I have to thank my mentors for that. They brought God into my life. I can see, among many other reasons, I was led to that space at that point in time. And it was all part of his plan for me to reconnect to God. So yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you. I plan now that I've wrapped up the mentorship. At least for now, I'm going to be focusing on stepping forward, speaking more, sharing more, and I'm working on how that's going to look with sharing the development, the self-development, the light language, or the speaking in tongues. I would say it's sharing the language of God is how I feel it is now. Yeah. And I'll share a message here at the end. That's how we'll wrap the session, just to close it out. So with that being said, I know this would be a great time to bring this through. And I believe I mentioned this early on, that when we put God at the center, our wants, our needs don't take up as much space. It's not about, it's interesting. There's something that shifts in the whole humility, humiliation. Humiliation was a big space of avoidance for me. If I wasn't living up to my own expectations, or I felt like I didn't do a good live, or people didn't have a good experience, I was like this wave of humiliation would wash over me, this wave of guilt, this wave of shame. Like I had somehow done a really bad job of being a really good person. And so my personality of the good person, of doing the good things, the right things, the spiritual things, was at the center. And this was that was where my control lived, right? Because I can control how people see me. If I do exactly what people want of me, that's the people pleaser, then I can control how people see me. They're going to love me. They're going to want to work with me. They're going to stick around. But then I didn't want to feel the humiliation. I was trying to avoid it. So when you try to work around control, or you try to work around shame, or you try to work around self-trust, or you try to work around loneliness or around grief, you're trying to work around it, which means you're trying to manage everything in your life so that you don't experience those things. And when that happens, everything else takes center stage. What this person said, you become hyperactive and hyper vigilant. You're like trying to control everything everyone says. One thing that came through for me in this mentorship was I started putting work towards a book called Humility Through Humiliation. And it was a beautiful awakening to how humiliation, when you're with it, when you're in it, brings humility. Oh, I would love that. You can always subscribe on here. I don't know if you are or not. I do have a school group. If you ever want to join, I'm going to be reactivating it. It's just a space where you just hop on, and I post things and share videos and teachings, and I think you can do it for free. I'm pretty sure. I know I pay for it to host a group, but I'm pretty sure the normal thing is you just, yeah, because my mentorship's on school. So yeah, you can just hop on there for free, and I share things with everyone. So I'm reactivating that now that my mentorship's through. I'll be activating that this month. So if you ever want to join, I'd be happy to share that with you. And I'll share that publicly to the link so everybody can join. It is like humility through humiliation. It's a good daily tantra or mantra, like to simply live in that. I can always reach humility if I'm willing to be with the uncomfortable. So I that's what I learned, that if the only way I was going to escape humiliation is if I left the mentorship. And that's because the mentorship, like what I do with my clients, and it's why Mina said it's the most intense romantic relationship she's ever been in, is because they're asking me to see myself. And when I see myself, what I really am seeing is not the true me. The real me is the me that God sees, which is clean, pure, sober, amazing, perfect. But the me that I see is the one that has judgment and guilt and blame and control issues. And I'm constantly seeing what's wrong. I've projected that onto my image. So when I see myself looking back at me, I see all the things that are wrong, because throughout my whole life, that's what I've done. I've looked and I've pointed out what's wrong instead of what's good and what's wonderful and what's perfect and what's amazing. So the familiarity is in what's wrong. So this is also when I try to avoid that at all costs, it leaks sideways onto everyone else. So humility isn't thinking less of ourselves. It's stopping the argument with reality that something's wrong with ourselves. It's the moment we stop saying, I shouldn't feel this, and we start saying, okay, this is what's here. I'm feeling some shame. I'm feeling some humiliation, and that's okay. I'm feeling some anger. That's okay. I always tell my clients, if anger starts coming up, if you're in a conversation, just say, you know what, I need to step away for 1 second. That's all you need to say. You don't have to explain. Go into another room or go outside and scream and jump up and down and shake your body and just let your body do the reaction, because this is what most people don't allow. They're trying to avoid getting angry, and so they hold back and they project judgment and blame, and then the anger never processes. We all get angry. Just take a step back, process it, move it through your body, and it's going to require movement, because those type of deeper acute emotional responses require movement. Sadness we can process in stillness, but grief requires movement. Frustration we can process in stillness, but anger, hate, resentment requires movement. So when we meet it, we learn from it. When we avoid it, we start to begin, or we don't just start to begin, we actually have accumulated avoidant pain. And so through time, the pain in our body is from avoiding those feelings. It's from trying so hard. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, if a reaction happens, again, humility, face it, be with it, own it, and then it can process. So if you're not at 100% today, that's okay. If you have reactions today, that's okay. God isn't judging you for your humanness. You're the only one that's judging you. And that judgment will always leak sideways if you don't face it and if you don't own it. And I know today I'm touching on a broad range of things because it's, my first time back in a little while, but these are all parts of myself that have been very active. I've had conversations around control, shame, self-trust, loneliness, and the most common denominator in all of those experiences, whether I'm witnessing myself or someone else, is the willingness to be with it. We tend to base our lives on what we think we should be doing instead of being in presence with what we've already done or what we are in the process of doing right now, right? We have these big ideas of what we should be doing, what we think should be happening. But the question is, how are you being with what you're doing right now? Even if you're sitting through this live, and I know it's been a little bit over an hour, and that can seem like a lot of time, but if you can simply be in the experience and enjoy what's here, enjoy the conversation, enjoy the presence, enjoy what's here to be received, then it's not about what else you should be doing. It's not about what you do with the information. It's, can you simply just be in the experience with another person and allow what's here to serve you? And it serves you based on what you choose to do with it, but not through some grand idea. Can you simply apply it right now? Of course you can. You can apply presence right now. You can apply acceptance right now. You have tools to move forward with, especially if some of this stuff is new. And even if it's not, even if you've heard it all before a million times, we could all use the reminder. Every single one of us. None of us live a perfect life. And because we have access to information, again, it goes back to, we think we know everything. That's another really common denominator is people hear this being discussed and they just assume, well, I already know. I like that comes through comments a lot. Like, oh yeah, I know, I resonate. And my invitation is to not listen from what you know or how that resonates, but listen from how do you hear it differently? How can you take what you're hearing and approach your life differently? How can you take the information that you know and apply it in a way that you haven't already? Right? So, I would like for you to, well, actually, before I go into that, I'm gonna invite you guys to reviewing something, and then I'm gonna be wrapping it up here in a minute. Sometimes when we're talking about the inner work, this is where people tend to get bored or avoid it, is because we think that it's just learning, interpreting, just thinking about ourselves, analyzing ourselves, interpreting ourselves, understanding ourselves. That's some of it. But understanding and having all of that isn't the same as presence. When you're in presence, you're aware of all of those things, but you're also able to see the next step. You don't have to plan for it. Even if you don't know exactly what it looks like. When I'm sitting in presence and I'm witnessing myself and I have all the information at my disposal, if I see that I'm going into an action and that course of action is a familiar course of action that does not supply me with a more harmonious result, then I know that that course of action gets to look differently. If I know that I have emotions coming up that I would normally avoid, then I absolutely need to be sitting in silence and I need to be present with my body, because if not, it's going to come out on another person. If I avoid the sadness right now, it's going to come out as grief later. If I avoid the frustration right now, it's going to come out as anger later, and it's going to come out on someone else. And then I'm going to blame myself and I'm going to guilt myself and I'm going to shame myself. So just to not avoid that, but to have a better handle on it, so that I don't have to go as deep, I simply get to honor what is in my capacity, or not just my capacity, what I have control over right now, which is how I respond in presence to the moment. So inner work is the work in action. It's not just the knowing, it's how it works through you. And when it works through you, you know. That's why the 12 steps are so impactful. And if you guys here have never read or even went into the 12 steps, I highly recommend it. Just if nothing else, to be with the process of the 12 steps. Because even if you've never been on drugs, or you've never been addicted to alcohol or sex or porn or gambling, everyone has addictive behaviors. Everyone has avoidant behaviors. Everyone. The 12 steps are a beautiful process and allowing you to have a better, like your focal point gets to take that information and apply it, because each step is dedicated to forward momentum, not just knowledge. So you actually get to, and it's God-centered. It's God-centered. Yeah, it is. It's God-centered. So you will love it, Fatima. I tell you what, hang on. I'm going to share a book title with you. I'll put it in the description too. Hang on. Let me pull it up really quickly. Okay. There's a book called, I think it's called 12 Steps. Hang on. No. Okay. No, it's just called Steps. It's called Steps by John Ortberg. And I will put that in the description. I highly recommend everyone get that book. I would recommend doing an Audible subscription and then purchasing it, because it can be pretty expensive if not. That's how I bought it. My mentors use that as a focal point of our mentorship. And it was exceptionally powerful, and it's been a favorite of mine recently. So yeah, I would recommend that. So as I wrap this up today, and I'm about to offer some quote unquote light language in a second, but I'm going to invite you to think about a challenge in your life right now. And just bring that challenge, something that just has really been at the focal point, and you felt some resistance around it, like there could be some improvement, but you're avoiding it. I want you to see, what are you trying to solve through thinking? Like, if you think about the challenge and how you're approaching it, one of the things my mentors say is your best thinking got you here. So true. That's how we tend to approach things. We apply all of our knowledge, all of our know-how, all of the information. We apply our best thinking to the challenge to try to fix the problem. So what are you trying to solve through thinking when it comes to that challenge? And what might actually be asking to be felt? So how can you approach that challenge through feeling instead of thinking? Your body is speaking to you first. You think the thoughts are, but the thoughts live in the nervous system. It's somatic. Your autonomic nervous system is simply relaying the most prominent patterns that you have formed throughout your life. That's your comfort zone, your familiarity, and everything in your reality comes to you because of that. Everything in your reality comes to you because of that. So every challenge, every relationship, everything in your life happens because of the patterns of thinking, feeling, believing, and meaning assignment that you have formulated from childhood until now. And the ones that you formed in childhood are still creating through you now. They're still magnetizing to you now, because all of us still act from our childhood perceptions until we go through the inventory of our childhood and complete the relationship with our parents. That is just the way it is. If you haven't gone through a deep inventory with your parents, there has yet to be an exception to this fact. You are acting out childhood perceptions, which means that the toddler in you, the 3-year-old in you, the 5-year-old in you are still controlling your behaviors and your decisions and your feelings. So that's important to recognize. Now, a lot of times we try to control through thinking, because we think that if we just have enough information, if we could just understand enough, we'll feel safe in our choice or in our decision. But that's not really the approach that leads to transformation. It's, can I stay with myself even if I don't have certainty? Even if I don't know what the next step looks like, even if I don't know the solution to the challenge, can I be with myself and feel my way through to the other side? Because when we stay in analysis, we're avoiding something. We're avoiding some feeling that we're unwilling to experience, and we seek more information to avoid being honest with ourselves. That information lets us be seen as someone that knows a lot, which means we don't have to be honest with how we're acting out from how much we don't know, meaning we don't really know who we are. We don't really understand ourselves, understanding through lived embodiment, not information. So maybe the next phase of your growth isn't learning something new. Maybe it's just willing to practice an application that you've been avoiding. Maybe somebody's invited you to pray more. Maybe somebody's invited you to reestablish your value system. These are things that I invite for my clients. Do a morning prayer and meditation. I had a client that just absolutely would not apply anything like that because to her it was boring. So even though there was all of these moments of crisis and upheaval and chaos and abandonment and obsession and attachment, there was a total unwillingness to apply anything that would have supported her in translating out of that into greater self-trust, into greater self-acceptance, into greater self-love. So when our morning starts with the celebration of God, when it starts with the just devotion to the ultimate love, well, then what I want someone to do for me today isn't at the center anymore. How I think my life should look isn't necessarily at the center, at least in that moment. I remember with this client, we're no longer working together. I had to let her go. I didn't have to, but I chose to let her go because there was just such an unwillingness to do anything with the work. It was just a complete avoidance. And eventually there comes a point where you can't help someone that's not willing to help themselves. There's nothing I can do if you're not allowing anything in. So there was an avoidance to any type of transformation and self-honesty, just total avoidance to self-honesty. And that's what this work is about. It's about being honest with who we are. And with God at the center, with that devotion at the center, you start to learn the practice, the habitual practice of devotion. Devotion is at the center of love, and love is at the center of transformation. Without any type of application that teaches your nervous system that it's safe to love, you'll always seek through obsessive, selfish attachment. Your personality and what you want and need will always be at the center, and you will never feel like you are happy enough, like anything is good enough. Nothing will be good enough unless you decide what that is. So learning to trust in God is the ultimate form of self-trust. So that to me is a practice that has transformed my life. So Thank you, Fatima. Oh, I love hearing that. Thank you. I'm so honored that you're here too. I know I love to get on here and just share my heart with everyone. And I know my lives go on for a little bit. So I really appreciate those that choose to be here and just explore this with me and just have a conversation like two friends at a coffee shop. I really appreciate that. And I really do, I agree with you. I really believe that authentic leadership comes from a heart that is centered in something greater than the self. Because true service isn't in what we do for others, it's I am a capable human being that owns and loves their humanness, and I am fully capable of showing up and sharing that capacity with others. And I used to think service was about what I could do for other people, but that's not. Now that God's at the center, my service is simply sharing what's on my heart and passing that forward and sharing my lived experience and showing up and helping people that can't necessarily like the elderly, get cleaning out my closets, giving food, giving clothing. Like I have, like I said, right now monetarily, I have just enough money to pay for what I need, but I'm still, some of that money still goes to animal shelters. I am making, like, I have a certain amount out of, I could use it to buy food, but I don't, I mean, honestly, my body can go without food. Fasting is exceptionally wonderful. And I that's something I'm committed to practicing more. So I choose, instead of buying something that I maybe don't need, I forward that money to those that can use it. So to me, true service is how you show up with other people, not what you do for them. So when I show up in love, I'm just loving the fact that I can give this. I'm loving the fact that I am in a position where I can give what I'm able to give, not because they're going to give me money, not because they're going to become a client. That's the way I used to serve. I used to serve that identity at the center is like, I need people to see how important I am so that they'll want to work with me. If they can see how powerful I am and how much I know, then they're going to want to work with me and do one-on-ones. That was always at the center. And I did not have a good relationship with my parents. I mean, I respected them and I appreciated them, but deep down were still memories of resentment and anger and hatred for moments in my life growing up that I had not completed. Going through the inventory and completing that relationship has been one of the most, aside from my relationship with God, is the most transformational experience in my life. Um, because now I don't stress about the money. And guess what? I have everything I need. I did before have everything I needed, but I also had the money to pay for it. Now I have people giving things to me. I give, and therefore people give to me. Um, this is the first time where my parents have actually given me anything in years, because I didn't, I mean, obviously, I had plenty of money. I was buying stuff for everyone. But they've also seen my dedication to my certifications and God, and when you show up for something greater than yourself, it automatically calls people in to support. That's real support. And I'm grateful for it. And I love being able to do the same for other people. So now I'm here to support anyone. I don't, before I, yes, I do. I would love to share my email with you. I will go ahead and give that to you now, Fatima. Let me know if you have something to write on, and I will just give you my email now. And anybody that would like it, you can reach me. And then we'll close out with some light language. But I've been working through an app called Lift Talk, where people that need support in addiction, mental health, behavioral health. I work as a trauma-informed life coach slash soon to be certified neuropsychologist, or certification in neuropsychology. Um, so as I'm working through that app, it's given me an opportunity to work with a wide range of people. And I've found so much humility in my life by not being the one that is in control of who comes to me, but people are referred to me, and I get to help such a wide variety of behavioral aspects. And it's a gift. It's a gift. It really, really is. And what I've learned from that, and it's not for a lot of money. It's for, I'm making like $20-$40 per session, but it's helping people that really need help. And that's shown me my capacity to simply give out of love and not give because I need money. And that doesn't mean I don't value my time, and it doesn't mean that I don't charge for extensive, in-depth work. But it does mean that I can hold space and honor those in a position that aren't ready for that yet. So I'm really grateful to have been able to do that as well. Okay. All right, Fatima, my email is, let me give you the easiest one. Okay. Éoaccí, my name, Éoaccí Éin, EIN, at gmail.com. I believe that's right. Let me double check. Okay. Yep, that's correct. Éoaccí Éin at gmail.com. And just please reach out to me at any time for anything. And that's for anyone on here. Éoaccí EIN at gmail.com. Sorry, somebody pulled up. And if anyone's struggling with anything in their lives, if anyone just wants to talk, you can email me, and you can also reach me on WhatsApp, but just email me first and I will give you the WhatsApp information. And of course, if anyone is ever interested in booking a session, you can do so that way too if you want to go deeper. Okay, good. Wonderful. But the space is open to just communicate. I don't expect anyone, by the way. I'm saying I have spaces open, but I do not expect it. It's not something anyone has to do. In closing, I will say, for anyone that is interested, I do have 2 spaces open for private clients right now. I only take a very limited number. And I will be opening my school community back up this month. So I will also put that information out. And through the school community, you will have an option to elevate your membership to a more intimate connection with me, which is like not expensive at all. It's like $11 a month or $22 a month. And that will come with like group sessions and group somatic practices. So I will have a couple of different options there for people that are interested. But the most basic membership is free, and you get access to a ton of information. So that's coming. And if anyone is interested in the soft launch, I am launching my course probably in the next 6 months. So if anyone is interested in joining the soft launch, once it launches, it will be anywhere from $555 to $1,000 a month. So this is deep, 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 extensive work. But I am taking a handful of people to join me in the soft launch so that I can get an idea of how it's working. And for those people that choose to join me, you will get it for a very, very cheap price, like under $200. So that's per month. So, and it goes for 6 months. The course is a 6-month container. It's a 6-month commitment. But right now I have it at donation based, but I'm probably going to put a base range on there just so, because there is a lot that's being shared, but at the same time, it is a soft run, it is a soft launch. So I don't want to limit the opportunity for people to join that could really get something out of it. So if you're interested, talk to me. We'll work something out. Okay. Because for those that are really interested in this, I'm taking everything that I've learned from my mentors, from my life, the transformation that's taken place, and what I know works and how this works through people. And again, God's at the center, devotion's at the center, and then we gather around that. And you get private one-on-one time with me. You have time in a group. We do somatic sessions, course topics, there are modules, so you evolve from module to module, kind of similar to the 12 steps, but it's different. So there's a process where you will be able to actually track your process in your life by having the steps to apply to see how it works, plus having it being molded and having support around you the entire time, like being encased in a cocoon of love, devotion, and application. So if you're interested, let me know. Again, spots are very, very limited, but we won't start for probably another 6 months because I'm still working on it. There's a lot of time. One module takes a month or more just to get together. So, this is essentially years in the making. Okay. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. So if you're interested, even if you're not interested in the light language, you can step